Okay, Winston, I hope that mic works for you. And there's a clicker somewhere around here.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's great to talk about real money of the governments after the presentation about quantum politics, right? Um, actually, I studied quantum physics when I was an undergrad student, majored in electronic materials. But from there, I became a happy lawyer, banker, and sovereign wealth fund investor, right? Who wouldn't, right? For people in this room. Um, so today I would, as Mark mentioned, recent 10 years, 10 years before the pandemic, I was a managing director of CIC, China's sovereign wealth fund, since its inception. And the last couple of years, among other things, I was an adjunct professor at NYU Law School, teaching a class about sovereign wealth funds, investments and regulations. I engage lots of funds as guest speakers, roundtables, etc. And for the class, I wrote the book, The Hunt for Unicorns, How Sovereign Funds Shape the Future of Digital Investments. So for today, I going to share some of the sovereign wealth fund perspective on digital infrastructure as a potential new asset class. So this can move forward, or Mark, you can help me. Yeah. Okay. Oh, this one. Oh, this one. I hope I won't turn this off. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So first, these are big guys, right? In my book, I referred them as the $1 trillion club. So if you look at the top 10, actually in average, they're about 1 trillion each. I used to work at the CIC, right, which is like 1.35 trillion right now. Second to the Norwegian guys, close to $1.5 trillion. And to Aman's point about we cannot ignore the power of Abu Dhabi, Qatar, and Singapore. You can argue to a large extent their influence comes from their sovereign wealth fund, because if you look at top 10, right, you have Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, you have the Qatar Investment Authority, and in Singapore they have two of them, right, GIC and Temasek. So it's quite an important factor of those countries' influence. Now, for CIC, I joined at its inception during the financial crisis of 2008. It was kind of a breakout year for all the sovereign funds, not only for CIC, but especially interesting for CIC because it started right there, right? So at that time, I was the first group of Wall Street trained Chinese that was hired by CIC to go back to China to start running that fund. So I was one of the first 100 employees. And by 2013, at the 5-year mark, I got a CIC watch. I'm still wearing it. I can show it. Yeah. Why 2013 was important date point? Because 2013, just like 2023 last year, was a big government administration change year. So after 2013, the government started anti-corruption campaign. So no more watches. So it was a good version. Yeah. So think about the context, right? As I said, 2008 was a breakout year for the sovereign funds to become active direct investors, because in the past they are mostly passive investors, allocators, but now they have the additional role as direct investors. So the very first CIC investment was $3 billion investment in the summer of 2007, the IPO of Blackstone, right? And the very second investment was end of 2007, Morgan Stanley, like $7 billion in the middle of crisis. And CIC wasn't alone, because even bigger investment was for Citibank. Like totally they put $10 billion to save Citibank, coming from all the sovereign funds, not only like Middle East guys, right? Like the Kuwait guys and the idea of UAE, and also the two Singapore sovereign funds. Yeah. So after that, they become increasingly active and direct. And for infrastructure and real estate, this is a kind of early asset class that the sovereign funds become active and direct, right? Because at least the theory is they are physical assets, number one, and number two, they have predictable cash flows. So you have clear visibility of their future. And thirdly, you can buy a house yourself, right? So why can't you buy a real estate and manage it? So that was the thinking. So that was how it started. And of course, during the last couple of years, even including the pandemic years, the money allocated into that sector, including direct investing of those big guys, kept increasing. And CSE too. And some signature deals were in London. One is Thames Water, kind of the city water system. Another one is Heathrow Airport. These are considered like to be signature infrastructure deals, right? You know, like heavily government regulated, physical assets, and quite a foreseeable cash flows. And these days, obviously, you know, many different factors, including the rising interest rate. So the returns of this asset class is under challenge. So the digital infrastructure coming into the space, and it also feels good because it sort of fits in the overall sustainable investment direction. Right? And I come back on that one because overall digital infrastructure is viewed as like green, resilient infrastructure for the future. And apparently, you know, there's a lot of demand for that, right? Because we talk about a lot of AI, and what's driving AI is the computing power. And for the computing power, you need a lot of digital infrastructure like data centers, 5G networks, fiber optics, cell towers, so on and so forth, right? But you really have to think about it, right? You know, like for the asset owners like the sovereign funds, you know, they begin by asking the question, for digital infrastructure, do they provide the kind of risk reward profile that we expect from the infrastructure allocation, right? And why this question? Why this question is because even for traditional infrastructure, like in the early chart, the toll roads, the city utilities, et cetera, even those assets, they have not, at least some of them, have not delivered the risk-reward profile that people expected. So going back to the two examples, I particularly picked those two. So first, you know, the Heathrow Airport, actually, it's
Winston, can you keep the mic up?
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, so it's a bed of the two. It's a bed of two, but when you look at the Heathrow Airport, actually the expansion plan of the airport that was discussed as the investment never happened. Never happened because things just drag on, you know. But that was one of the better, of the two, it's one of the better investment. For the Thames water system in London, actually now it's on the verge of bankruptcy, right? You know, how often do you invest in infrastructure and it has bankruptcy risk? And apparently, you know, the utility company actually put on a lot of leverage, but every time they want to raise the cost of water, which are local people always say no, right? And the local regulators always tend to agree with the voters. Yeah? So at the investment committee, it was described as a inflation hedge investment. But in reality, the inflation hedge never happened, right? But that was like a small issue, right? The much bigger issue is like a lot of all the corporate actions, right? They got dragged into local politics as well. So right now, actually, it's public news, and it is on the verge of bankruptcy, and the CSE is maybe like the second largest investor, the top investor, the biggest owner percentage guy already wrote off the valuation by half. So for digital infrastructure, let's say data centers, right? When you compare that to an airport, actually it missing that exclusivity. You know what do I mean by that? Like, you know, if you have an airport, at least you know, for the next 20 years, maybe there will not be another airport, right? in that city, most likely. But for data centers, if you invest in a data center, tomorrow there can be another parcel of land to be turned into data centers. Things like that. So you have to think a bit further, right? And then it also has a technology kind of component to it. Like today, you have this data center that you can support the cloud service of Amazon, Google. But 5 years down the road, you don't know what kind of technology disruption may come and change the whole thing. So maybe you have to ask a lot quicker kind of cash back. And then the last one is about the sustainable aspect, right? Since all the sovereign funds are becoming the leader of sustainable investment, especially the Norway guys. Actually, their executive come to my NYU class last 3 years as a guest speaker for the sustainable investment session. So, but when you look at the energy consumption, right? Right now, if internet is a country, the energy consumption is like number 3, right after China and the US. And this energy, and most of the energy comes from traditional energy, right? Plus, this demand for that kind of energy keeps increasing. So Bloomberg estimated like 1% of global energy consumption goes into the computing. And then there's, according to another data, right, cloud computing contributes close to 3% of global carbon emission. Actually, that's more than the global airlines. And then finally, this trend is continue. This trend is continue, right? Generative AI, very process data intensive and energy intensive. IoT age, a year ago, China for the first time has more connected things than connected human. And pretty soon, the whole world, you will see the same. With Apple Vision Pro, blah, 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 right? You will have a lot more connected things than connected humans.
Winston, can we start asking you questions soon?
Yes, please.
Yeah, but when you
This is the last page,
thoughts.
actually. Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, you got to show your books, though. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the digital infrastructure, energy transition, right? That's sort of the biggest topic. The sovereign funds already committed tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions, into energy transition last couple of years, and now they're getting into digital infrastructure. And I think the most investment activities will come at the interplay or the intersection of these two important topics. So that's it.
All right, I'm making you pick your favorite sovereign wealth fund, trillions. How do you want to redirect your allocations in today's world?
I think if they are serious about sustainable investments, they have to combine digital infrastructure investments with energy transition projects. For example, data centers plus solar power next to it.
Where's Hank?
Yes.
Hank, is Hank in the room?
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Hank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But thinking in this world where we're at multiple wars.
Interesting. Yeah, I know you won't let me go unless I talk about some China topics, right? Yeah.
A little bit.
No. It's interesting when you look at let's focus on the sovereign wealth funds, right? Because that list is different from the Canadian pension list, et cetera, right? So the difference is, if you think about it, is that the sovereign funds guys, their base currency is US dollars. So their thinking must be different from the pensions, which hand out dividends to the pensioners in the local currency, right? So in a US dollar strengthening environment, actually it makes a huge difference. For the Canadian guys, if the Canadian dollar keeps depreciating against US dollars, they just keep investing overseas, and then when that's converted into Canadian currencies, they look like genius, right? Because they got a lot of benefit of the local currency depreciation. But for the sovereign wealth funds, right, their mission is to preserve the value and increase the value of the national assets. So they have to be measured in their for their returns be measured in US dollars, because that's the purchasing power of the national wealth, right? So in the US dollar strengthening environment, I think naturally they would allocate more US assets and US dollar assets.
Got it. Well, that probably segues to the next panel, but any questions? Oh, yeah, Sam, go.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm most jealous of when I look at China is the efficiency with which China's very efficient at building large infrastructure projects, right? So you talked about the need for investment in digital infrastructure in a space that you see opportunity. How does the regulatory landscape and maybe some of the political uncertainty in the U.S. impact the way you think about infrastructure investment in the U.S.?
Right. Yeah. I think for the Chinese capital, I think at this moment it's almost certain that they cannot invest into the U.S. infrastructure because of the CFIUS National Security Review. Blah blah blah. Right. So for the U.S. infrastructure, you would see a lot of European money into this, right? So for example, another guest speaker for my class has been KfW, the German development bank / sovereign fund established after the World War II, part of the Marshall Plan. Yeah. They have a New York office, and they're surprisingly active in investing in U.S. infrastructure, including digital infrastructure. Yeah. So you will see, and also another example, APG, the Dutch pension. Again, they have an office in New York, and they are very active investing in the infrastructure in the U.S., including digital infrastructure, smart cities, etc.
One last question, and then we're going to talk about Bill Deichler. Because you give so much to our community, you get to.
You're so kind. Winston, thanks so much. What do you see? Go blue. Go blue.
Go blue, yes.
Do you see the demographic situation in China impacting the investment and political scene now, or do you see it impacting soon? Right. And what do you think that might happen?
Right. Yeah. So first, just kind of disclosure, I'm now American citizen, so so I have to be a little biased, right? So, but anyway, love the question. That's a huge debate in China right now. I guess I think you ask the question in the right context. Everyone knows it will hit China, but the real question is, it would be very soon or a much longer time, right? The answer. The answer is maybe, because most of the people would think it will come very quickly, but because of the benefit of the CIC, when I was working there before the pandemic, I went to a kind of government forum, right? And then there was one government official, say something which made me think. Yeah, he said, even during the demographic transition, there will be a lot of deaths. Don't quote on this because it sounds very negative. Because he said there will be a lot of death, but he said a lot of death is also a lot of demand. He said it is also a lot of social activities. Yeah. So that I remember that for quite a while, and now, so to your question, I think most people expect it will come very quickly, but maybe it's not that quickly. It may happen in certain asset classes very quickly, for example, real estate, because it's all based on expectation, right? But for of a consumption, etc., actually it may drag on much longer than people think.
Come join our 361 firm community of investors and thought leaders. We have a lot of events created by the community as we collaborate on investments and philanthropic interests. Join us.